So working with thoughts, emotions, and urges. So this is really like the nitty gritty of life. So we all have these, whether it's insomnia, a little bit of insomnia, a lot. We've all experienced a night or two of insomnia for sure. Anxiety, urges around food, addiction.
Food's a big one.
It's all very stress related. So it's very universal. And we're going to get into it. So Mark, do you want to just go through kind of each didactic here, a thought, an emotion, and an urge, and just kind of talk about what those three represent?
Yeah, let's break it down. So what's a thought? A thought is a bit of information in your mind, and thoughts show up two ways. They show up as sound like, and anybody who's ever had a song stuck in their head knows what a sound like thought is. Mm-hmm. In the class that I teach, I give a name to that kind of thought. I call it talk, and because mostly it's the self-talk that gets our attention, but that word talk means a sound like thought, and thoughts are also picture like. If I say, think of the Eiffel Tower right now, you guys all imagine, you have a thought that is very picture-like, and people with PTSD or difficult memories that are plaguing them, they're often being plagued by picture-like thoughts. And one way to think about that, I'm fighting off a sneeze here. One way to think about that is, you've heard the expression.
There it is.
Okay.
That was gonna happen.
You've heard the expression, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so a lot of meaning it comes rushing in when you have a picture-like thought. So it is really difficult to work with thoughts, but if you don't know a couple of really simple things, and that's what I want to share on this class. Now, do you want me to talk about emotions and urges too? And because an emotion is made of parts. So you have to be somewhere or thinking something. There has to be some sort of context that is meaningful. And so the meaning is embedded in wherever you are, who you're with, or the memory of that in your mind. And then, so the context shows up, and then thoughts arise, narrative, story, sound like thoughts, picture like thoughts, and then sensations arise. So tightening in the stomach, squeezing, lump in your throat. So those three come together to form an emotion. An emotion is a composite of context, thinking, and feeling. So there's some sort of something that's happening that is getting you thinking and feeling. Now, an urge is very similar. An urge is an emotion of wanting. It's like a craving. I want this thing, and that also is going to have a context, something that you got triggered by. It can be either there or in your mind. And then once it starts, there's thinking and feeling, and you're in the thoughts in that dynamic. So what's the question? Do you want to learn how to take these things apart, work with them?
Yeah, and I want to interrupt you real quick because
Sure.
we have a question from Andres.
Oh, great.
And so Andres is asking, would you say mindfulness is like cognitive reframing?
I would say no to that. Cognitive reframing is like CBT, cognitive. CBT. What does CBT stand for? For goodness sakes, cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm so okay. So CBT is actually what you're referring to, Andres, where something's happening, you get a perspective on that, which is the mindfulness part. But then having that conversation with yourself, like being a cheerleader, like you can do this, you've handled this situation in the past. That's the reframing that you're talking about. That's more CBT. And I hope that helped. But to even be aware that to use CBT, you kind of got to be mindful. It's got to be like, oh, what's going on? I'm in this dynamic. I'm stuck in an emotion. Okay, get myself out, get a bigger perspective. So the mindfulness is a part of it. But strictly speaking, mindfulness is a balance of attention, local attention, global awareness, and you're monitoring and modifying moment to moment this non-judgmental awareness. And then in the next moment, it could occur to you to use some CBT.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Andres. Anyone else who has a question specifically related to thoughts, emotion, and urges, or meditation and mindfulness in the 2-minute general, feel free. And in the meantime, good. He says that did explain it.
Okay, great.
So thank you.
Super.
Yeah. So yeah, Mark kind of has gone through what a thought, an emotion, and an urge is.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can give an idea of what those have in common, so we could get to a point where we could help, people right now. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so and I didn't mention pain because we're talking about thoughts and we sort of, which is mostly a mind thing, and we sort of left out the body. And the body's often involved in emotional experience as well, not just feelings, but frank pain, like when you hurt your knee this past week. So and didn't you have an opinion about that?
I mean, yeah, it hurts.
It hurts, but it wasn't just a physical thing. It was a mental thing too, right?
Yeah, of course.
And didn't you have some emotions around that as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so the triggers can come from outside of you, in your head, from your body. So thoughts and sensations get entangled in a whole bunch of different ways. And let's talk about an emotion and how to take it apart. So you're in a situation, you may be, let's take your knee. Okay, because that's very simple, and everybody has hurt themselves, been laid up, has a bad back. I have a dear friend and a colleague, and I just got a text before we came on. He's really hurting right now, and even in the text, I could tell that it's pushing his limit, and he's a mindfulness guy, and so pain can be intense. So how do we work with these things? An experience like your knee, okay, you're going to have physical pain, and then you're going to have thoughts about the pain. So that's going to be sound-like thoughts primarily, but you might have, if you recall, like pictured not being able to run, or I don't know, you might have imagined the future and
there's
what's
a reframing.
Yeah. And so sound and picture-like thoughts, and very likely you probably had some feelings in your body related to not liking. Like not just the pain, the pure pain signal, but resistance of the pain, like kind of that.
Because as I'm trying to go through my day to day, and I feel that it affects me, whether or not I'm trying to go for a run or bike, even if I'm heading to work.
Frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustration.
Yeah,
and
right.
It brings up a question. Many questions.
Right. When you say questions, probably anxiety, not in the great sense, but nervousness, like, oh gosh, how long is this going to last? So this is a perfect example of how situations in our life can kind of snowball and amplify. Now, how to work with it. Now, I want to preface that there is no magic bullet. Right? By the power vested in me in physical therapy association, may healed. Like that's I know. Yeah. So he's gonna have to live with some amount of pain for however long, and so are we all. Okay. And so what's our challenge, what this is all about is, can we experience the difficulties in life and not make it worse? So that's the key. And if you can learn how not to increase the intensity of something that's already distressing or prolong the duration, you're, in a sense, you're putting a little box around whatever it is, and you're limiting the intensity, limiting the duration to whatever it was. That's the best you can do. Okay. And so, but it still means you're going to have some experience of pain or distress or emotional discomfort. And in that situation, what you want to do is you want to take the experience apart. It's going to break down into 3 parts: where you are in the world, what you see and hear. Okay. And so you can use your eyes and ears to, in a sense, focus your attention outside of yourself. When I'm in pain, and I've meditated with pain before, what I do is I open my eyes and I see something outside of myself, and I put my attention outside of my body. So that's very helpful. You can also use your ears to focus out. So using your eyes or your ears to focus out.
Focus outside of yourself.
Outside of yourself.
And these are tips that you're going to be able to walk away with tonight.
Walk away with tonight.
Right now.
So just write it down, focus out.
Focus
out is and I learned this technique from a rock star meditation teacher. His name is Shinzen Young. He has a book, If You Have Pain, and I don't want to make this about, pain, but it's Breakthrough Pain is Shinzen Young's book, and he teaches a whole bunch of techniques that you could apply to emotions as well. So I just want you to know, but focus out is a good technique. I've used it. I teach my pain patients to use it. So great technique. Another technique, if you're dealing not with physical pain, but more of the thoughts related to some distressing situation, is focus on the thoughts. And so it's more like, instead of focusing your attention out, you're focusing in. You're focusing in specifically on talk. Now, I know we've done this before in these Facebook Lives, but in different contexts, in the context of different conversations. And so if you hear this again, you may see how useful these techniques are, because there's just a handful of really good techniques. So when you think about a sound like thought, most people think that they are actually sounds, and they're not. And so prove it to yourself right now as you listen to me, because my voice is a sound that you're hearing right now. I want you to listen to me. So focus out, hear the sound of my voice, but at exactly the same time, I want you to focus in, start to count to 50 in the middle of your head, and listen to yourself count as you listen to my voice. Okay, so listen both ways, in and to me, out. And now notice something. Notice you can hear my voice, and even though you are counting, yes, you are, notice that that's not a sound. That the middle of your head, even if you're counting really loud, is still a very quiet space. The sound like thought is there, but the sound is not. Do you get
yeah, it's interesting. When you said that, I tried to count louder in my head. I was like, 15.
Yeah, right.
and didn't really change anything.
And so the middle of your head, there's never actually a sound there. Okay, it's sound like. That's why I have to do these air quotes. Sound like. Okay, which is kind of weird, but it's true. It's paradoxical. Now, the same is true with picture-like thoughts. If you're listening to me, go ahead and close your eyes and notice what you see when you close your eyes. And I want you to have a visual experience of eyes closed. You just see a black space. So prove it to yourself right now. Close your eyes and notice, oh, there's this black space. And if you focus very gently on the backs of your closed eyelids, notice that you kind of do see something like light and dark shapes kind of coming and going. I call that the light show. Notice that you can see a little bit of a light show. Like right now, what I see is, I kind of see the outline of the computer in this white glow, and it's fading, and it's all like lava lampish, but that's what I see in the middle of my head. Okay. Now, if you close your eyes again, and if you look at that light and or dark screen behind your closed eyes, and you really look at that, and then you think of the Eiffel Tower, notice that all you see is a black space in the light show. You don't literally see the Eiffel Tower, which is strange. And some people may be like, wow, I always thought I saw my thoughts. And thoughts are picture-like, but they're not pictures, which is so weird. Okay, so these are the kinds of things where if you focus directly on the object, directly on the thought, you will see it is not a sound. You will hear that it's not a sound, and you will see that it's not a picture. And knowing that is liberating. It's like the truth will set you free. And then all of a sudden you realize that the mind is just a quiet, empty space. Mm-hmm. And yes, information is passing through it, but it's not as vexing or hooking as you thought it was, because you were amplifying the sound-like quality, the picture-like quality, and you didn't know it. And so, you just take away that amplification, and it's already better.
So, say in terms of anxiety around a job,
yeah.
I want to ask you, because the first tool you mentioned was to think outside of yourself.
Think outside of yourself?
Hear outside of yourself.
Oh, that was if you had a pain.
That's for physical pain?
Physical pain,
okay.
Focus out.
Got it. And then the next tools we talked about were the sound-like thoughts and picture-like thoughts.
If you're worrying about like a job, or you have insomnia, or like if you're working with thoughts, turn towards the thoughts very often is the best way to deal with them, because then what a thought is, it's information, really a symbol for something. It's like a language going through our mind, and a symbol is a stand-in for a something. Okay, it's not the thing; it's a stand-in for a thing. And a thought, that word "thought," is a symbol. It stands for this little information that you think is a sound, and you think is a thought, is a picture, but it's not. Okay, so if you focus on it instead of think about it, all of a sudden you see not a picture, you hear not a sound. So focusing on,
expose it for what it is.
Expose it for what it is. Just it is information passing through consciousness. That is true. But what's not true is the solid picture sound-like quality. Okay, and that's usually the vexing part of it.
And now, how does that relate to? I want to get into this concept you were telling me about earlier, called where you work with the verb and not the noun.
Okay.
Is that
okay? I just explained that. So the noun would be the thought. I'm thinking. I've got or let's do it this way. I've got anxiety. Okay, that's the noun.
That's the noun.
So work with the verb, which is the flow of thinking and feeling. And so if you focus on feeling, and you really focus in your body, you close your eyes and open yourself up to just feeling, what is this? And don't answer that question. Don't say, oh, it's anxiety. Just feel. And then you notice that there are a whole bunch of sensations, and you might not like them, but with acceptance and care and a wish for the highest good, just open up to them. No resistance. Just feel. And then you'll notice it's just actually energetic. It's moving, and every second it's different. And if you just focus on it without hating it, you don't get in a feedback loop with it. You don't get in a fight with it. You just focus on it and breathe and just let it be. And after a while, it very often runs itself down. And the same with thinking. If you focus on the thought instead of stay stuck in the narrative. So staying stuck in the narrative, the noun, the story, you focus on the flow of the thinking, the verb, the activity, then you're out of it.
Great. And that's something you can really put to the test on anything from insomnia, any type of anxiety related to relationships or work.
With anything.
Self. Yeah.
And it's it's not easy, especially if in our life we live in a context that is distressing. I don't want to suggest that mindfulness is a panacea for horrible conditions. It can get you through, okay, but it's a tool to use that enables you to make things a little better, and hopefully that will enable a little more better and a little more better, right? And so you're helping yourself. You're learning to gain some skill. And there's two kinds of skills. There's warrior skills, where a warrior can handle the distress, but there's also artist skills, where the artist is creative and deft and able to work with intricacy. And so you as you move toward evolving yourself and changing the circumstances in your life, you're embodying sort of an artist's and a warrior's archetype. You're living from your artist self, your warrior self. Yeah. And so that's a big part of, growing yourself up.
You'll improve.
Yeah.
You'll improve. So we have a question from Charles. Hey, Charles. So Charles says, when is it important to focus in on the thought versus allowing thoughts to pass by? Attention versus awareness.
Okay. So that's a great question. If you're meditating and you're meditating on the breath, then keep the thought in your awareness. You know that the thought came and went, and don't engage with it. Okay. Your focus is on the breath. But if you're not meditating, excuse me, and you're trying to get to sleep, you can choose sound-like thoughts as your meditation object and just listen to the middle of your head. And so don't try not to think. Don't get involved with the content of the thinking, like in the story. You're just listening to the truth of talk in your mind, which is, it's just quiet, even if you're thinking. So that would be the difference between those two, the contrast between those, the question you asked.
Yeah. And again, kind of what you were saying with I have to become a warrior, an artist of this stuff, that is not easy, right? We've all had those nights where it's like the thoughts are there and it's really hard to just sit back and look at them from another perspective, isn't it?
And being a warrior clearly is not easy, nor is being an artist easy. Okay, but warriors and artists achieve something greater than themselves. They make change in the world, and that's, these kinds of archetypes are what you have to embody if you're on that journey to improve, to lift yourself out of circumstances. You have to embody those archetypes.